It was a cold, moonless night when I received the call. I was halfway through my night shift as a rookie paramedic, still sipping a now cold cup of coffee when the dispatcher's voice crackled through the radio. Unit 7, we've got a welfare check at 45 Willow Creek Road. Elderly female. Neighbor reports screaming and strange noises. It didn't sound like an emergency, more like another routine check, but something about the address made my skin crawl. Willow Creek had a reputation. Locals said that part of town was cursed. Abandoned houses, strange accidents, missing pets, and even people. But none of that mattered officially. What mattered was showing up. My partner, Sam, had been on the job for over a decade. He was calm, sarcastic, and had seen more dead bodies than he could count. He shrugged when he heard the call and muttered, "Just another lonely old lady losing her mind." We drove out of town, the city lights fading behind us as the road narrowed into woods. The further we went, the more the air felt wrong, like we were entering somewhere we shouldn't. When we finally arrived, the house looked abandoned, old Victorian style, 2 stories high, shrouded in overgrown bushes and darkness. The porch creaked under our feet. Sam knocked, loudly. "EMS! Anyone home?" No answer. He tried the doorknob. It turned with a loud click, and the door slowly creaked open on its own, revealing a pitch-black hallway coated in dust. We stepped inside, our flashlights cutting through the stale air. The silence was unnerving. No clocks ticking, no pipes creaking, no insects. Just dead stillness. The living room was cluttered with antique furniture and faded photos. One picture caught my eye, a much younger version of the old woman smiling with a man and a little boy. Something about the photo made my chest tighten. It looked wrong. Their eyes seemed too focused, almost lifelike, as if watching me. That's when we heard it, a low whisper coming from upstairs. Faint, almost like a chant. We exchanged a glance and followed the sound, climbing the stairs carefully. Every step we took groaned loudly, as if the house itself was warning us. At the top of the staircase, the temperature dropped. My breath fogged in front of me. The sound was coming from the last door down the hallway. We approached it slowly. The door was slightly open, and inside, lit only by the pale moonlight through the window, was an old woman sitting on the edge of her bed. She was rocking back and forth, her long gray hair covering her face. Her whisper sent shivers down my spine. It wasn't English. It wasn't even human sounding. I cleared my throat and called out, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She stopped. The whispering stopped. She slowly turned her head toward us. Her face was off. Her eyes were completely black. No whites, no pupils, just an endless void. She smiled, revealing yellowed, rotting teeth, and whispered one word, "He's here." Then, every light in the house flickered. The door behind us slammed shut with a bang, and we were plunged into complete darkness. My flashlight died instantly. Sam cursed under his breath, fumbling to pull out his backup light. When we finally turned it on, the woman was gone. The bed was empty. We searched the room. No open windows, no closet, nothing. She had just vanished. That's when we heard footsteps coming from the attic above us, slow, deliberate, measured. But there was no staircase to the attic, just a sealed panel in the ceiling. And then we smelled it. Rotting meat, decay, death. Sam tugged on the bedroom door. It wouldn't open. It was as if something had sealed it shut. My hands were shaking now. Suddenly, scratching not from outside but from inside the walls, all around us, as if something was crawling within the house itself, circling us. Suddenly, the panel in the ceiling creaked open on its own, and a long, disjointed arm reached down, grayish skin, unnaturally long fingers, nails like claws. We screamed, backing into the corner, but when we shined the light upward again, it was gone. The next few hours were a blur. The clocks were stuck at 3:03 a.m. We tried radios, no signal, phones, dead. The house played with us. Each room changed. The hallway would stretch unnaturally long. Doors would vanish. We heard crying, growling, sometimes our own voices mocking us from behind closed doors. At one point, Sam walked into a room and didn't come out for 10 minutes. When he returned, he looked shaken and pale. "Don't ask me what I saw," was all he said. We started hearing a voice, male, deep, repeating one sentence over and over, "You shouldn't have come here." I broke down around dawn. I dropped to my knees, exhausted, terrified, ready to give up. That's when I saw the woman again, standing at the end of the hallway. She raised her hand slowly and pointed toward the front door, pressed for a welfare check. And worst of all, they told us that house had burned down 10 years ago in a fire that killed an elderly woman and her son. We returned a week later with police. There was no house, just a blackened foundation and twisted remains. But inside those ashes, the police found something buried, an old photograph, untouched by fire. A woman, a man, and a boy. All three of them had black eyes. If you enter the wrong place at the wrong time, the night doesn't just hide horrors, it braids them. If that first story gave you chills, now's the time to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and drop a comment telling us which moment creeped you out the most. And don't forget to share it with a friend, because the next stories are about to get even darker. It started with a sound, barely audible, a slow, repetitive scratching like fingernails across damp wood. I had just moved into a basement apartment downtown. The place was small, dimly lit, and slightly moldy, but affordable. The silence, I thought, would be a blessing after years of roommates and noisy neighbors. The first night was uneventful. The second, however, was when the scratching began, around 3:17 a.m. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, ears alert. It sounded like it was coming from beneath the floor, right under my bed. I brushed it off as rats, or maybe old pipes shifting. But then I knocked twice on the wooden floor out of nervous curiosity. There was a pause, then something knocked back. Not a random noise, not an echo, a deliberate single knock, as if something heard me and replied. The next morning I laughed about it, told myself I was just tired. But that night, at the exact same time, 3:17 a.m., the knocking returned, louder, and then it moved, from the floor to the wall near my headboard. I sat up, grabbed my phone to record it, and pressed voice memo. When I listened to it the next morning, the knock was there. But beneath the knocking, something else, a whisper, deep, raspy, barely human. Let me in. My stomach dropped. I replayed it several times, each time hearing it more clearly. It wasn't just noise, it was a voice. I went to the landlord that afternoon, an old man in his 60s named Carl. His eyes shifted the moment I mentioned my unit and the knocking. That basement's got some history, he said. I pressed him. He sighed, then told me the apartment had been sealed for 5 years. The last tenant vanished without a trace. No signs of break-in, nothing stolen. His stuff was still there, but he was gone. No one's lasted more than a week in there since, Carl muttered. I shouldn't have rented it out again. That night, I barely slept. Every light on, closet doors open. Nothing happened until 3:17 a.m. The power went out. No warning, no storm, just darkness. My phone battery was dead, even though it had been on 90%. I grabbed a flashlight and walked into the hallway. That's when I saw something I'll never forget. There were footprints, barefoot, muddy, and leading from the trapdoor in the laundry room straight to my bed. The trapdoor had always been locked. I assumed it was sealed. But that night it was slightly open, just enough for something to crawl through. I should have left right then and there, but fear held me in place like chains. I stepped toward the trapdoor. My flashlight flickered violently as if reacting to some presence. I leaned over and heard breathing, heavy, strained, coming from below. Then a hand, gray, thin, fingers cracked and bent at unnatural angles, reached up, slowly, quietly, searching. I slammed the trapdoor shut and backed away in terror. But the floor beneath my feet began to throb, like something massive was moving just under the surface. I fell, hit the ground, and saw dust falling from the ceiling as the walls vibrated with low, rhythmic growling. For hours, I sat in a corner, clutching a kitchen knife, waiting for dawn. Nothing emerged again. At 6:12 a.m., the lights came back. My phone buzzed to life. I immediately searched the building's blueprints online. Here's the part that made my blood run cold. There was no sub-basement, no crawl space. The building had no records of any space beneath my unit. That trapdoor shouldn't exist. I told myself I imagined it. I even stayed at a motel for 2 nights. But something kept pulling me back. My stuff, my pride, my curiosity. I returned, and that was the biggest mistake of my life. The night I came back, everything felt different. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was watching me. The apartment was cold, even though the heat was on. I could see my breath. The lights were dimmer. Shadows seemed to stretch farther than they should. That night at 3:17 a.m., the trapdoor didn't just open, it exploded. Wood shards flew across the room as something rose up. Not quickly, slowly, like it knew I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was tall, impossibly tall, and wrong. It had no face, just tight, black skin stretched over its skull. Its mouth was sewn shut, thick black thread stitched in crooked lines. Its hands dragged along the walls, leaving long, clawed marks. And it spoke, not with its mouth, with my own voice. You heard me. You let me in. I passed out. I woke up on the floor. Morning light pouring through the window. Everything looked untouched, but the trapdoor was gone. No hole, no hinges, just solid floorboards. Since then, I don't sleep, because every night at 3:17 a.m., the knocking returns, from inside the walls, from inside me. It's not asking to come in anymore, because it already has. And every time I hear silence, I know it's just waiting to speak again. Some voices should never be heard, especially your own. After my grandfather passed, I inherited his farmhouse tucked deep in a forgotten valley. Isolated, overgrown, and left untouched for years. I didn't know him well. He was always described as a quiet man who heard things. My parents rarely spoke of him. They had refused to visit the house since I was a kid. Now, it was mine. I moved in thinking it'd be peaceful, a break from city noise, a place to write, rest, rebuild. The first few days were normal, dusty, yes, but calm. Nights were completely silent, no cars, no animals, just stillness, too still. On the third evening, I explored the attic. Covered in cobwebs, it smelled like something long dead. In the corner, beneath a rotting sheet, I found an old 1940s-style wooden radio. It was heavy, worn, yet somehow it looked recently touched. Its antenna was slightly bent, like someone had adjusted it not long ago. There were no outlets nearby, but as I held it, the radio turned on. No lights in the house flickered, no spark, just sudden, loud static. Then came the voice. I see you. My skin crawled. It wasn't a station or recording. It sounded too real, like someone was whispering directly into my ear through the speaker. I yanked the cord. It kept playing. I removed the batteries, still on. It only stopped when I threw a heavy blanket over it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard faint static in the walls. I dreamed of something standing over me, speaking in my grandfather's voice, though I couldn't understand the words. I woke up gasping. The next night, 3:17 a.m., the radio turned on again, this time without me touching it. We remember your face. I hurled the radio into a metal bin behind the barn. I even poured gasoline over it and set it alight. The following morning, it was back, sitting quietly on my bedside table, completely untouched, no burn marks, same static, same humming presence. But this time, it didn't speak. It laughed. Terrified, I packed my bags and tried to drive away. But the car engine sputtered, then died. Every time I walked toward the road, the distance stretched, and I somehow ended up back at the porch, as if the property had bent reality around me. That night, the radio didn't turn on at 3:17. The mirrors did. I walked past the hallway mirror and caught a glimpse of something wrong. I stepped back. In the reflection, I saw myself, asleep in the attic, but I was standing in the hallway. Then the reflection turned its head toward me. I shattered the mirror. Blood ran down the crack in the glass, but from the inside. Panicking, I locked myself in the bathroom. The radio, now outside the door, began whispering again. Over and over. He never died. He just changed rooms. I opened the medicine cabinet to splash water on my face. Inside was a photo of my grandfather, his eyes scratched out from the inside of the frame. Behind it, scrawled in childlike handwriting, "We belong to the signal." Then the lights died. I backed into the wall, and it felt soft. Breathing. A noise rose from the drain, like 1,000 voices humming at once. And then behind me in the darkness, a figure. It crawled from the ceiling, upside down, dressed in my grandfather's favorite coat. But the face was wrong, stitched mouths across its forehead, chest, and stomach. No eyes, just openings that pulsed like lungs. It pointed at me and said in my voice, "You're the broadcast now." I fainted. I woke up in the attic, not the bed. The attic, the radio next to me, glowing softly. Everything felt off. The sun outside was frozen in the sky. The clocks blinked 3:17. My phone showed no date. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I looked into the broken mirror again, and this time there was no reflection. The house was no longer real, and neither was I. Now I know what happened to my grandfather. He didn't die, he became the signal, and now I've taken his place. Every night the radio turns on in someone else's house, a whisper, a laugh, a name, and if they respond, I hear them, I find them, and I speak through them, because the static never ends, it just moves into you.